Welcome to another episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Ignacio Esteban. What's up,
Bill,
Ignacio?
Bill, what's going on, brother?
How are
How's
you,
it
man?
going? We're doing it live. I like it. Pretty
Yeah,
cool, right?
man.
Good,
Yeah, it's
good
a little
deal.
different. Change it up.
I've got a nice little surprise for our audience. I've got a nice free promo this weekend on one of my books on Amazon.
Yeah,
One of the books I just did, called the one on the Hells Angels, Full
yeah.
Throttle, Riding with the Hells Angels, The Life of Sonny Barger. So if you go to Amazon, even if you don't have a Kindle account, it's free for anybody. So if you're watching live now, if you watch it later until Monday, you got a free promo for watching this. You get a free book, and you got to read about the Hells Angels. And if you like that book, you got to also take a look at some of the one percenter books and everything else that I have that's out there. So you got a free book for you guys for watching the show and hanging out. And I plan it out, so we're doing it live. So not
Yeah,
bad, huh?
and if you guys want to get any of his books, he has a whole bunch of books that he's wrote and has written, and you can go on Amazon. The link will be in the description of this video.
Great.
What's up, Lucy? What's up, Richard? We got a whole bunch of people watching tonight. My brother's watching. Shout out to my brother Derek. And
Shout out
so
to
we're
Bill.
gonna get into your story, man.
Yeah.
And so you want to tell the people where you're from and a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, I'll give a little story so I understand my little background, how I got involved in law enforcement, being an undercover. I grew up, born in LA, Los Angeles, raised in South Florida in Miami. And I never, I always loved, looked at respected law enforcement, right? Growing up, I was a big fan of the Untouchables, and I loved how Elliot Ness took down Al Capone, right? You had to bring guys on the outside to take down some of the worst of the worst. So I respected that a lot. But I had a degree in political science and history, right? And I was going to FIU in Miami. I got my degree up in Tampa at St. Leo University, and I was going to FIU on my international relations, and I was going to law school. And I started putting for different positions, and I said, let me try out, because law school is very expensive. At the time in the mid '90s, you're looking at still about $35,000 a year. That's a lot of money. I said, why can't I start making some money where I said, I like it. I have a background with my degrees, and I speak Spanish. And customs were looking people who spoke Spanish, who understood cultures in Latin America. So I put in for it, and I got the job, and the rest was history. And I started working with
The first
customs
job
at the
with
airport.
customs, was it
Well,
like at the airport, or was it
yeah,
like different people
yeah,
and
no, it was at MIA, Miami International Airport, which at the time would make some of the biggest seizures in the country. That's when the cartels, the Cali cartel, Medellin cartel, was still thriving. Before they would collapse years later, but they were still getting through the seaport, the airport, and we were still. And I was part of one of the elite teams there, the Contraband Enforcement Team, and we were getting huge loads and huge seizures. And for example, I'll give you one in the fish, right? They have the huge tunas and groupers coming in. You get a block of ice next to a block of kilo. and,
yeah.
and we get like about 600-700 pounds that way. I mean,
Oh,
it's
so they got a block of ice and a kilo of
literally
cocaine. Black
right
ice.
next to in each big tuna group. And you look at it, it's like, wow, that was going to get ripped off. There's no doubt that was not going to go where it's supposed to be, because you had a lot of corruption at the airport, and these shipments get ripped off. It was, I mean, remember, it's big money, so it's big conspiracies going on there, right? So and then we had stuff coming in the flowers, a lot of flowers from Colombia. Sometimes they get very creative. They put the cocaine inside the stem of the flowers. That's hard to detect. I mean,
Yeah.
even with X-rays, it's hard to detect. So I mean, that was back then. Something even with a good canine, you wouldn't miss it. So intelligence, obviously, with so much stuff coming in, it's really important. And I know I've talked to you before about this part here, but maybe some of the audience doesn't know about. And this is a sad one here with a lot of the peasants and stuff from Colombia who will be someone will get paid good to be like swallowers of like cocaine and heroin and stuff. That's brutal. That is brutal. And I was part of teams that would detect that too. And they would have sometimes like 2 or 3 pounds of cocaine or heroin in their belly, in their stomach, and they got to pass that stuff. And
It
if they
says
can't,
smugglers of illicit drugs or
yes,
concealing them in the human body are considered to be known as body packers or mules.
mules or swallowers, right?
Yeah.
And they swallow a lot. And you can I get real good at it. I could detect on their breath the latex, right? Because they put them in condoms, they wrap them up right, and they swallow all this stuff. Sometimes they use like a lot of these sports drinks, like Gatorade or whatever, to push it down. And you can smell that because these guys been doing this. Once they're done, they're loaded up. They put them on the plane, right, and off they come to Miami. And there's so
Yeah,
many of
like
them.
they do it right away. Like they
They have
swallow them
to.
all. They go right onto the plane. So they're not.
A lot of them, yeah, they do. They don't want to wait around because, like I said, that stuff can leak, right? It can open up, and a lot of times it happens, and they're dead on the planes. They're DOA, dead on arrival. It's really sad. It's really it's crazy. So that was part of the work I was doing there. So yeah, we get a lot of seizures. And like I said, sometimes we don't get all these guys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you have the pictures. Good deal.
Yeah, these are pellets of the cocaine in the person's stomach. So
Yes.
did you
Yes.
have any situations where a
Yes.
person maybe got caught with some drugs? They had them in their body and they're like, hey, I got drugs in my body and I want to get them out.
Yeah, you have confessions, yeah, and then you have guys who play stubborn, right? Who don't. But you have all the indicators, right, that this guy's a swallower. He really has no reason to be here. He has no job in here. He's coming from a suspicious area, right? And everything is a pattern here for 2 or 3 days. Everything fit the pattern where he was a smuggler, right? He's a carrier. So yeah, we will get the and the guys, we didn't catch all of them, and sometimes a lot of them will get through. But if you can't, it's not easy to pass those things. Even with the laxatives, it's not easy. And these cartel guys, these guys who are waiting over there, they're not going to wait, 3 or 4 days for you to pass it. You know what they're going to do?
They're gonna cut it out of you.
They're going to shoot you in the head and gut you and take the pellets out. And that's what they're going to do. So they're lucky a lot of times that we catch them because at least we take them to the hospital. There's a process to get them out, right? They have to take the laxatives. They might be there a week passing these pellets, right? And some of them, they can't, even with the laxatives, they can't pass it. And they have to have surgery to get them out.
I'm gonna show you guys this picture, and there's probably, I don't know, maybe 200 pellets in this dude's stomach.
Yeah, man. No, we get some guys who are.
Look how many are in that dude.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's crazy.
People do some crazy stuff for money, right? So, some of them do for crazy, some of them money, and it's those are things not worth it. And you get caught, you get some serious Fed time.
Yeah,
customs serious Fed time. So I did a lot of that, and then I started networking a lot, and I met a lot of guys from ATF or FBI or DEA, and I said, at the border it was cool doing the job, but I want to take the case to a different level. I want to do different.
Hey, before we transfer to your next
career?
Your next phase of your life, did you see any other things that were being smuggled besides drugs?
Oh yeah. Like, it's a big thing that goes out of the country. Is you get the drugs coming in, you got the money coming out. Yeah. And they get just as creative. We had the set outbound team and inbound. I was inbound, but I also helped in the outbound, and tons of money. The cartels want their money, right? That's what it's all about. It's about the Benjamins, right? Yeah. And they want that, and they get just as creative to get their money back out there. So yeah, money's big. Weapons, right? What else do cartels want? They need firepower, right? And sometimes they smuggle them out also. So the airport, and that was back when I was in the 90s. Of course, now I think that they got more sophisticated with the land borders. I think it's a lot easier that way now. So the big, freight trucks and semi trucks and just, crank it through that way.
Like false bottoms and all that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Traps, how many trap cars and everything else you got going on, getting the stuff out there. So that's one of many things, but those are the big things. You got counterfeit money too. You got counterfeit currencies coming in both ways. You got money coming out, firearms, you name it. If there's money to be made on it, people will do it, right?
Did you ever see exotic animals coming in?
Yeah, there's some of that. Sometimes you had stuff that you shouldn't come in. Also was illegal too was because of OFAC. Sometimes you get like certain foods you can't have, certain plants, right? It's like a whole factor of stuff. But I was focused with the team I was in with the drugs, and that's the biggest hit there. So after networking and doing all that, I end up putting in for ATF, DEA, and some other ones, but ATF picked me up the fastest. So after 5 years there, I got picked up with ATF, and I went to Tampa, which was cool because that's where I studied at there, and I knew the area. And that's where I started developing, because the group I was in, they did a lot of undercover work. So I learned a lot of different styles. I was a Spanish speaker. There's some other Spanish speakers, the guys who weren't Spanish speakers, right? Yeah. Some guys are more talkers. Some guys are more listeners. Some guys do things so differently. Some guys have a different look, bald head, long hair, goatee, no hair. I mean, it depends how you want to do it. Some guys had tats, they tat it out, right? That wasn't really my thing, but I did grow. I think people seen pictures. I had a nice big beard. I had nice big hair, long hair up to my back, lower back, and I spoke Spanish, right? And that helps a lot.
The only picture I have of you from your undercover days, I believe this is you in the truck with somebody, and they were
Yeah.
doing a drug deal, right? And you
Right,
got
we're doing
a
drug
picture
deal.
of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right here. The guy's handing you over cocaine.
Cocaine, and there's some body armor right there. He sold me some guns too on the bottom. That's a ballistic vest. You see the camo?
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. That happens all the time. Yeah, Florida, very active. Lot of guns, a lot of drugs, obviously there, and a little bit of everything. And those are good cases. Good cases. So you start doing that, right? So you start developing your skill. You go to undercover school also. You get backstopped. You have all different kind of vehicles. And I start working cases with repeat violent offenders, right? Gang members, armed drug dealers, international traffickers, domestic traffickers, even help cases where worked, murder for hire investigations. So, ATF is a smaller agency, so you got to do a lot more. We're not as big as the FBI, right? FBI has
Yeah.
over 35,000 employees. We have 5,000 agents. We have maybe 2,700. DEA has, I think, about 8,000 agents. So I was also the case agent. I wasn't like lucky enough where I had someone else do all the paperwork and do everything. I had to do everything. I wore many hats. It's like, okay, I did the undercover. Now I got to do all the reports. Now, if I want to do the affidavits, I got to do that. I got to do my own property. I got to do all my intel workups. Dude, that's some long days and hard days.
So you're doing undercover buys and all that all night, all day, or all night, and then you got to do paperwork the next
Paper,
day or
yeah.
whatever.
Sometimes you have to buy yourself time because, like I said, one day on the street, you might have 2 or 3 days to catch up with paperwork. So you got to play things out a certain way. You got to cover your story. You're out of town. You're coming back because that's unfortunately we were small that way. And I wasn't one of those guys that would travel, let's say, cross country and be gone for 5 or 6 months. I had a small family. I want to stay with my family, so I did a lot of my undercover locally. Sometimes I would go throughout the state working there, but the undercover I did was a lot of stuff. Something even do a lot of home invasion cases, right? Dealing with armed home invaders who are looking to do a lick, an armed robbery of a cocaine stash house, right? And they're looking to rob guys who are armed. So some guys want to look for soft targets. These guys were not one of those guys. These guys would hit guys and they didn't care because, hey, you got 15, 20 keys in there. That's worth the risk.
Yeah, it's like millions of dollars worth of drugs.
Dude, that's worth the risk. But, it's like, man, those kind of guys, you got to be in those kind of cases. You got to be very careful. You have different meetings. And at the end, you need a SWAT team to help with a takedown because these guys are gunned up. They want to do this and they're well armed. So you need good firepower in case things get ugly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So those are dangerous dudes. That's what ATF does. A lot of people don't realize, what's ATF? ATF, I tell people it's, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms with explosives, right? It's a very small A, right? Because the prohibition era is over. That's how ATF, prohibition started. A very small T for tobacco diversion, a huge F for firearms trafficking, and a medium E for explosives. So that's and if it's where's ATF? It's in Department of Justice, and we have rivals. I mean, I just finished writing a book, which is pretty good too. Not free, but it's a good one. If you got a free book, it's not buying this book about ATF versus the FBI. The rivalry within the Department of Justice, the DOJ.
Because there is a rivalry, right?
Oh, yeah. So
like I have jurisdiction over this case, and they're fighting over this and that, right?
I talk about cases, my experiences, what we see, and they're bigger than you, right? So they see us as sometimes as their little brother that they want to push around a little bit and control and say, no, we got jurisdiction, we got this and we got that, and you have to fight for your lane just to do your cases. So on top of everything else you got going on as a case agent, undercover, you have to deal with that rivalry. You have to deal with problems with let's say on top of that, you have a bad boss, right? So then you got to deal with a bad supervisor, or worst of all, you put together an amazing case, right? But then it has to go to the United States Attorney's Office for prosecution. You get a bad prosecutor, doesn't want to do the job right. And the case goes down the tubes for that too. So you have to be a kind of person, which I was, that you have to overcome obstacles, because if you can't overcome obstacles and challenges, you won't be a successful case agent, and you won't be a successful undercover. Even doing undercover, a lot of these guys, they come with excuses. Hey, the stuff is not here. This is not going well. Let's do it. There's 100 things you got to overcome just to make the things go right. And you got to get really good at it and come up with a good story, right? That's the key right there. Have them believable, come with a story, and having good informants is golden. Good
Yeah,
informant.
someone who can lead you into the right direction.
Put you in the right organization, right? The right group of guys, the guys who are actively selling drugs, guns, home invasions. The guys, they're doing it right. But he has to be a person, right? He or she has to be somebody that's going to play both sides, right? Because if they're doing that, well, they're still a criminal, and now they're going to be just a cooperator. They're going to look at charges too.
Yeah,
So
have you ever had somebody who was a CI who is cooperating with you but they're really trying to like bullshit you, you know?
yeah, you got to vet the information you got for sure. Can't trust anybody. You have to verify all the information you got. Look into things before you go out there. And if they end up bullshitting you, and then they're done, they get blackballed, right?
Like
No
they
one's
give you
going to
some
use it.
bad information to get out of some shit.
Blackball, or yeah, they lie to you all the time, or they don't. The worst is when the ones can't follow instructions. You say you have to do it this way, and they want to do it their own way. It's like, no, you're not running the case here. You're just following. You're getting paid to do something a certain way. Then there's somebody you can't work with, right? Somebody you work with who can't follow instructions, direction. You can't work with someone like that, and they're done. So those are the amazing things you have to come up with, and you never think about when you start a job like that you will have to do to be a successful agent, and you learn quickly. It's baptism by fire, no doubt about that.
So how does that work with the CIs? Do they get paid just for their information to provide you information, or do they have to like? Is it like a job for them?
So, some are cooperators, right? They're working off their charges, so they don't get paid anything, right? They hopefully get consideration if they do good work. We tell the prosecutor and the judge, and then they get time off from the sentencing. Others are professionals, and they do get paid, you know, and they get paid a subsistence, and then at the end they may get an award or something. Like I said, we don't pay the highest. FBI and DA sometimes pay a percentage of the seizures they make for an informant, so that could be maybe
What, like
lucrative.
if they seize a bunch of cash, the
Yeah,
CI will get some of that money?
that could be if it leads to them. Yeah, percentage. They sign a contract for that. We rarely do that, but we have bigger. They do stuff like that. So yeah, FBI, DEA, and that's how you get the big fish, right? You have to do stuff like that. That's where you get guys to come out and cooperate. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So I did that for 26 years, 21 with ATF, 5 with Customs, and I just retired last year, right? And I never thought ever I'll be writing prolifically like this, or even being on podcast shows or YouTube shows, right? When I was in ATF headquarters, I promoted. I did about, like I said, 12, 14 years undercover work. I promoted a few years ago, and I was I transferred from Florida with my family, working here in headquarters, working on programs and everything else, which you see things behind the scenes. I retired, and I wanted a vacation, a nice vacation with my family. We went because COVID just finished, right? We drove all the way to South Dakota. We went up to Niagara Falls, and I took some great pictures. That's why I'm telling you this. I did some great travel book pictures. So if you're not into politics, organized crime, but you like travel, you got some great travel picture books I did there. So I come back for the family from South Dakota, beautiful places to travel in Wyoming and everything else. Great, you should check it out. I started thinking about a lot of politics, and that's how I started really writing with political books. I started writing about China and about the Olympics, because in February, we just had it. They hosted the Beijing Games, the Winter Games, twice. The only city to ever host the Winter and the Summer Games. And you know how atrocious China's human rights records are and everything else, and the stuff they've done with the ethnic Muslims in Tibet and Hong Kong. If you're looking to for freedom, the Communist Chinese Party is horrific. I mean, it is just. And then look what happened with the virus, and doctors who blew the whistle on them. They all disappeared or got sick or they were gone. So
they were kidnapping them out of houses and everything.
And still people's freedoms. The CCP is horrific with people's human rights and freedoms, and it is just a my family personally went through it with the communists in Cuba, because they're Spanish, went to Cuba and dealt with it in the 50s and 60s, and they came out. I was fortunate enough to be raised in the United States and born in Los Angeles and raised in Florida. So I know my family's experience, what these people do, and we are so lucky. I know people get angry and frustrated, but we are so lucky to live in the greatest country in the history of the world, and our great institutions, democracies we have here. Many countries, and I write about this, about the tyrannies. Look at Russia, look at Putin. That's so I went with politics, talking about all these things, and then I said, I always have a niche with organized crime, and I can talk about the one percenters, the Italian mafia, street gangs. We worked a lot of cases with street gangs, prison gangs. I wrote a really good book. I mean, and my books are short reads, but good detail reads. So if you don't know something about, let's say, one percenters, I wrote a book about that. You get a good feel about, the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, the Bandidos, the Vagos, the Pagans, the Mongols. So, and I give cases, and ATF infiltrated all these groups. I had maybe a
Yeah.
small case with the bikers, but I did other things. But we have a lot of agents that wrote, infiltration that helped take down a lot of these guys. And that's why the book I was mentioning earlier, with Sonny Barger, who was the head of the Hells Angels, the face of the Hells Angels, at least for like 60 years. He just passed away. So that kind of inspired me to research more, because I had done one earlier, and give some good details about, the life and times of Sonny Barger. I think it's a good book for those who don't know much about the Hells Angels.
Yeah, he was the national president, right?
I don't know about that. Did she
One
say
of
that?
I'm pretty sure he was.
No, I'm talking about what Cadillac Jack is saying here.
He's one of the co-founders of Cadillac Jack. Nancy
Nancy Pelosi
Pelosi
says China
says
is one,
China's.
one of the freest countries in the world.
She did too.
She did what? She's crazy. No, it is not. It's the opposite. Absolute oppression. Yeah, that's one place you don't want anything to do with, and especially if you're anti-communist. If you're not now, if you're a communist, okay, let me replace this. Maybe she because she's a socialist or she's a liberal and she leans San Francisco to the left, right? She may like that place because they control the masses, they control things, and you're part of their agenda. Okay, but if you're not part of their agenda, it's bad news. Like in Cuba, if you're not part of Fidel Castro's agenda, and you don't like the way things are in Venezuela or North Korea or Putin, if you don't follow Putin's direction, guess what happens? You disappear. You go to jail. Look at that poor basketball player. You saw what happened to her because she had some weight. I mean,
I don't really feel too bad for her, because there's a lot of people in this country who are in jail for weed, and
I
she
agree.
should have known better, man. She should have known
and I agree.
better.
Especially we're legalizing it pretty much in almost every state now, right? For
Why
medical
is
use.
why is she more important than the person who got caught in California
It
or
shouldn't
New
be.
York, who
It
got
shouldn't
caught
be.
with some weed and sitting in prison right now?
Yeah,
She's
small
not.
amounts of weed, that's crazy. But obviously, major drug traffickers, cartels who are violent and vicious and ruthless, those people need to get everything. Like the Chapels of the world, we need to. And I have really good books about cartels and the violence. And if your audience is not aware how violent these guys are, I talk about it in the books, but there's so much video out there. You can see what these guys are doing and how brutal they are. I mean, they dismember, they do horrible things, and they have all the weapons. I wrote a book about ATF, Fast and Furious and the weapons, and I talk about how a gun-free. Yes, that's my Undercover right there. It's a good read. It's the longest book I have. It's about. It'll probably take at least 2 or 3. I'm depending on the reader. It's over 20,000 words. A lot of books are short, but this is a very good detailed book about not just about ATF, but my life, right, and the stuff I have to overcome. And I also give solutions to some of the problems we have dealing with firearms trafficking, gun violence in this country, mass shootings. Then I wrote another detailed book about some of the worst mass shootings in this country's history and how we can stop them from happening again. And I think there's a lot of good stuff I put in there. Yeah, that's another one there about vicious, ruthless, and bloodthirsty, the crime syndicates. So if your audience doesn't know much about these guys, I think they should look them up and you see how bad. Yeah, LA mobsters for sure.
Damn, man, you're just full of ideas, huh?
Yeah, and I said, like I said, Bill, I just didn't think I was going to become a prolific writer, but I really enjoy it. The one percenters, that will go really good with the Hells Angels book that's free for this weekend. So this will be a nice book to introduce you to all the different biker groups, right? And how they function and what's going on and where they work and the rivalries, what's going on between them and what the feds have done with them. And I think I may have talked to you before about this. The Italian mafia and the one percenters are nothing what they used to be, right? They've been devastated with major RICO investigations. They fought themselves a lot, and the cooperators have turned on each other, help bring down the organizations. But the street gangs, prison gangs, and the cartels are flourishing. They're as strong as they ever have been in this country, and they keep on. I mean, Mexican cartels have pretty much taken over, not only in Mexico, Central America, and South America. I mean, where the Colombian cartels were, the Mexican cartels have taken over now, and they used
So
to
out of all those crime groups that you talked about, the
Yeah.
mafia, the gangs, who's the most dangerous group out of all of them?
I think the cartels. I think you look at Sinaloa and you look at the Jalisco cartel, CJNG. I mean, these guys. I mean, I think, I don't know if I told you another show. The Gambino family, which they thought was probably the strongest of the New York mafia families, at its peak, was making maybe 500 million a year, right? At its peak. The cartels now, according to the Mexican government, are making between 12 and 15 billion dollars a year.
Yeah, it's like chump change compared to what they're making.
The cartels are so much. That's why they buy everybody in Mexico, right? They control everybody in Mexico. They're corrupt in Mexico. They have a socialist there, Lopez Obrador. He's been very soft in cartel leadership. What I've been reading and everything that's going on. I was going to go work in Mexico, right? But they revoked our diplomatic immunity. They didn't give the U.S. agents didn't have diplomatic immunity. So imagine, would I take my family there without diplomatic immunity, right? He does not supporting U.S. investigations going on there, and he doesn't even want us being armed. Why am I right?
Yeah, they want you running around there with no gun.
You want me to be a victim? That's called the victimization mentality. You know, in our country, there's gun-free zones that we have. Well,
Yeah.
That's a victimization, because that's when the criminals and the people with mental health issues, they know that's where the problems are, and you can't be armed. But they're not going to follow the rules, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But they expect us to follow rules. So criminals don't follow rules. Cartels don't follow rules. And Mexico has some of the strictest gun laws in the world, right? But the cartels have everything. They have everything they want because they buy, they bring in, they're corrupt, and anybody that challenges them, they take them out too. So if you're a police officer trying to do your job, they're turning on you guys. Them. Yeah, they're killing. So they send a message out there. So if you're a cop in Mexico and you're in one of those rural areas, are you going to enforce the laws against the cartels?
Probably not. You're probably just going to go with the flow, and
you go with the flow because they're going to kill you. But they don't just kill you. You know, the cartel, the mafia used to just kill. They have a problem with you, they kill you, right? No, these guys don't do that. They're going to kill your whole family in front of you. And it's not going to be a nice, quick way with a bullet in their head. It's going to be really brutal, dismembering, horrific things that you wouldn't even want to think.
Bridges and all this crazy stuff.
And then you see heads hanging everywhere, bodies hanging out. And they put signs on top of the dead bodies that says, this is what happens to people who enforce the laws in this area. So it's really a bad situation. Murder and
money. It's true, man.
That's what it is. And these guys are they're fighting each other. So the government is becoming almost irrelevant in Mexico. It's almost a failed state.
Yeah.
The cartels, it's like Somalia.
Remember, it's like they just gave in. Like they just gave in to it.
The warlords run Somalia. The drug lords run their regions, right? And anybody who challenges them, the military, law enforcement, they got 50 caliber Barretts. They got weapons of war. They shoot down police helicopters, military helicopters. They go after everybody. So that's the situation we have. That's why I say in my book, we have to finish the wall, right? We have to finish building the wall to keep this kind of, this is part of the problem, because it just makes it a little harder, because you got a lot of overstays. So it's a complex issue, but you have to do that for security, because I have a wall. I got at least a fence around my property. I imagine a lot of people do. We should make it harder for the cartels and these other people to bring the stuff into our country.
Yeah, but they're already here. Don't you agree?
Those who are here, we have to take them out. We have to deport them. We have to arrest them. We have to get serious with this. This is a situation we have to get really serious. It's a lot of work, a lot of stuff, and I saw firsthand. You have a lot of overstays, a lot of illegals, people who come in and they jump the line, right? I mean, we're a country where people put in to get their visas to come here legally. They're waiting the process. It's not really fair for people to jump the line and do that stuff for those who are trying to do it the right way. So we're trying to be a fair country. And I understand everybody has a tough situation. That's where you have to try to solve the situation of these countries, because we can't take the whole world in, right? If it does, we collapse.
We're the bullies, man. We're the bullies of the playground.
So it's crazy stuff there. But back about mass shootings and the weapons, this gun-free zones don't work, man. They don't work because criminals don't respect that. In fact, that I think makes it more, hey, you go to a restaurant, right? And it says no weapons allowed. How many times you go somewhere and you say, you have a concealed weapons permit? I've been trained, but yet they don't want you to have your guns in there. And after
even law enforcement can't go in with a gun?
Well, law enforcement, but I'm retired now, right?
So if you're retired, you can't go in there with a gun?
If that's the rules.
Gun-free zone?
If you have a gun-free, if you don't have a concealed weapons permit, a lot of places, it's a private property, they can make those rules up, right? They can say, it's kind of messed up, because and then they don't guarantee your safety. Because the case law after the mass shooting in McDonald's back in '84, after people were victimized, was McDonald's said, we're not responsible for your safety either. And they won. So they don't want you armed, and these places who take your money and take your business are not there to protect you either. I think that's if I ran a business, I think I would have security just for my own peace of mind. I want
Yeah.
people out there. That's just me. But some
Depends on
people,
what kind of business you're running, but like
yeah,
if you're in a bad part of town,
no, man, you don't have something. That's just you don't want to go out there. But those poor people, they get victimized all the time. They have no choice. They live in those areas. I would want to at least have some to try. But then the person out there is going to get jumped and killed, right? The security
I
guy.
mean, the criminals don't care about the law. They're not gonna, like
Okay.
you said, they don't care about a gun-free zone.
No.
And I was watching this guy talking to this town about, oh, if they take our guns, then the criminal can break into my house and kill me. And he said the gang members and all that, they're not going to go and turn their guns in, their illegal guns, once they
No.
make ARs illegal and all this. They're not the ones who are going to turn their guns in. It's going to be the legal gun owners, and then the gang members are still going to have guns.
No. Criminals can do what criminals do, right? They're going to
Yeah.
still thrive and do illegal. And if they make it illegal, remember, America also makes the most firearms, right? We got a ton of weapons in here. Very pro second. And like I said, most ATF guys, they have the impression, no, they're very pro Second Amendment. People need to arm themselves, protect themselves, because if you think the police are going to come and save you in your home, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to defend yourself and your family against these intruders, because you call 911, you're lucky they'll be there in 10, 15 minutes. And guess what? There's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of bad things happening if you think the police are going to save you.
Because I'm a felon, right? People tried to break into my house one time, and I maced them all. There was a crowd of people. And they tried to kick my door in with my family there and everything. And I opened the door and I maced them all, and I slammed the door in their face. I heard them all coughing, and then the coughing stopped. I opened the door again and I maced them again. So I closed the door. The cops end up coming, and they're treating me like I'm a criminal. Like, why are you macing people? And I'm like, what do you mean?
They're trying to come to your house. Yeah, they're trying to
They
break
try
in.
to come in my house. Like I'll do anything I have to do to defend myself in my house.
In your house. Yeah, no, there's case law. You have to protect yourself. You know, and on other places, if you're outside, then and it depends on the state you're in, then you have to retreat first. And if they keep on coming at you, then you can't stand. But in Florida, you can stand your ground, right? You don't have to retreat. You can stand your ground. And not every state's like that, though. You know, law enforcement, of course,
Connecticut's
policy
not.
different.
Connecticut's definitely not, because they put the mace in an evidence bag and all this shit. I was like, what the?
So they took what you had to protect yourself, and it was gone.
Yeah. They told me I shouldn't stay in that apartment that night. It was bad, man. It was a bad time.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people, you know what, I hate to say this, you know, there's blue states and red states, right? And I'll always live in a red state because I believe in my Second Amendment, right? Be able to protect yourself, and you need to have your weapons, and you need to be able to fight. And because in certain areas, you still can't have any firearms or anything, and it's not good. You know, like I say, like the Northeast in Chicago or in California.
So when you were working as an undercover, were there any times where you were like felt like you were about to be exposed for being an undercover, or you thought maybe they knew?
No, because I mean, obviously, I didn't sound like this. I think I told you my English was broken. I may sound like hablo español y todo, and I wanted to sound like I just been out of Cuba for 10 years, right? You know, I've been in the country 10 years, almost like a kind of like a Scarface type, right? But
how about you recognize somebody maybe, but they don't recognize you?
Yeah, I was very careful where I worked, not where I lived, right? If I lived somewhere, I would go far where I worked my undercover stuff. I wouldn't want that in the same area. So I was smart enough I was fortunate enough to keep it at a distance. I live over here. I don't do anything near where I live. It's always going to be cases stuff away from my house. So those two worlds I don't want to have my family with me walking somewhere and I bump into, you know, this guy or this guy, right?
So that never happened.
That never happened because I purposely made it sure it was going to be not going to happen, because I just made a huge distance. Let's say I lived here and all my undercover stuff was like 40 miles away, 30 miles away, right? So those worlds and those guys don't have the resources, right? You're doing a lot of street level guys. They stay in their little world, right?
Yeah, they're not going to go out trying to find who you are. Like,
No, and they're in their mind. They don't even think that I am, anything but what I say I am. I'm here to buy. I'm here, doping guns, and I'm trafficking the guns down south, what have you. So, and they like it. They see it. It went well, and that's.
So what point of that, like when you're doing the gun trafficking thing, what point of that is entrapment to where you're bringing these guns to criminals to buy off you?
No, I would buy the guns from them.
Oh, you would buy the guns from them.
Yeah. These guys were actually selling guns, so I would buy the guns for them. Occasionally, we would do reverses if they showed, an interest in a lot of weapons, cachet of weapons, and they have the means and stuff. But no, I would take the guns off the street. I'll be buying the guns from these guys who are actively selling a lot of these street guns and stuff like that from them, the drugs and everything else. So it for, I mean, all kinds of people. Like I said, bad people would buy, and not just a lot of these guys. In my book, I talk about. Does Ignacio think the law is winning the war on drugs? No. Richard Dowling is asking that. No, we're not winning the war on drugs. And I talk about that in one of my books. And I'll get back to my story about the undercover. I was going to tell you. The war on drugs, we can't win it unless we have people who win their addiction, right? You maybe attest to that, Bill?
Yeah.
People have to win their addiction. They have to beat their addiction. They have to stop their addiction, because then if there were people who weren't consuming it, right?
You won't have anything to feed.
They're not going to be subpoenaed. Other cartels are involved in a lot of things. Okay, maybe they're done with the drug side, because they're also involved in extortion. They're involved in murders, they're in kidnappings. They're involved in stealing oil from the pipeline. You name it, stealing a commercial cargo.
Yeah, every kind of drug. They bring every kind of drug over here. They even bring pot
gosh.
here, right? Weed.
Yeah, we it's getting less because people now it's getting legalized, right? And it's now people grow it here. They do a lot more things here now, so that's becoming less. But heroin, yeah, that's a big problem. Cocaine's a big problem. A lot of pills coming in, fentanyl and all that stuff.
Crystal meth.
Yeah, methamphetamine. All that stuff is a big problem. So people need to fight their addiction. So I believe the only way we're going to win, especially the country, is we have to help people with their addiction. We have to get people off the drugs and get them treatment, and they need to get treatment, and they have to get that. So it's like an alcoholic, right? You got to help an alcoholic. You got to help somebody involved, because if not, it never ends. The cycle never ends. So we're winning. No, we're not winning that. We're never going to win that unless people win from within and they realize they got to stop what's going on. So, yeah.
Is it getting more violent out there?
Yeah. No, it's violent, no doubt. But look at just the mass shootings. That is ridiculous. And I wrote a book about that, the worst mass shootings in U.S. history, and how we can stop them from happening again. Yeah, it's what are the solutions? Well, we obviously are a gun nation, right? We are a frontier nation. We're established Second Amendment nation with firearms. So that is part of who we are. We need our protection. What we need to do, maybe like something like Israel does, or other nations, where they're pretty much at war, they've fortified, their schools, right? They have the resources where they have armed security on all the schools. We have to have people who are trained professionals, or even the teachers who want to go through it. Like, you remember the pilots after 9/11, right?
Yeah.
They went through the training. They had the firearms in the cockpit. They fortified the cockpit,
the doors,
right?
Yeah.
They had a force multiplier. We brought back the air marshal program, which was very small. We beefed that up as a federal agent.
And they stopped all the weapons that they could bring on, like all the nail clippers and all that.
Yeah, you got to do all the liquids.
Knives.
Yeah, and so the airport fortified. Remember how easy it was? And I remember when I was small, it would just go right to the gate with almost no security, right?
Yeah.
Now it's a whole different world, right?
Yeah.
TSA, right?
4 hours before your flight.
at least. At least. So I'm not saying schools should be that way, but there maybe be one way in, one way out, more fortification. And unfortunately, people have seen the video from Uvalde, what happened at Robb Elementary, 77 minutes, unacceptable for those guys going in. End up taking Border Patrol TAC team to go in there, not the locals to finally go in there to get the shooter, Ramos.
Were they scared to go in there?
Yeah, they should. Active shooter training, and once we've taken, is once your shooter starts shooting, you got to go in there because people are bleeding out, they're dying, right? You got to neutralize the threat. You got to stop the threat. I mean, those kids had nothing. Those teachers had nothing, right? And those guys are armed. They got vests, and eventually they got some long guns. You go in there, you start blasting, you take the guy out because he's killing kids, right? So that was a horrible. I think the chief there had to resign, or he was fired from his position there. He just made the wrong decision there at all. Once people are dying, you got to go in there. And what's heartbreaking if your audience, our audience, to take a look, is the video of the parents who know their kids are being shot in the classroom, brings their own weapons, shotguns and stuff to go in there, and they're being tased, they're being handcuffed, they're being, pepper sprayed by the police, not letting them go up to save their kids where the police won't do it. How heartbreaking is that, huh?
It's terrible, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
So,
It's insane.
no, and the teachers, the poor teacher. If everyone can see the video of the teacher who survived, the 3 teachers were killed there. One survived. Right? He did an interview about a week after the whole incident, and he really said it was the worst thing to see. He shot 3 times. He's laying there. He can't move to help his students. He told him he had the best training he could to tell them to go in the back, hide what they could, and he's seeing his students get massacred and killed. And he told the parents, man, don't be angry at me, man. I did everything I could. What I was trained to save your children. He felt horrible, but he felt even angry at the police who were outside. He could hear them, and then he'd come in and do their job. That's
a situation like that in the town where I'm from. They
Sandy Hook, right?
No, there was the Cheshire home invasion situation. 2 guys home invaded a house in Cheshire, and they ended up, the cops surrounded the house and they didn't go in to get the guy, or they didn't even make contact with them. So that the 2 guys inside ended up killing the mother and the daughter, and they ended up getting caught. But it's like they could have prevented all that,
Yeah,
they waited.
There's a lot of violence, lots of violence in the United States and around the world, not just America. I mean, you look at Mexico, lots of violence there, lots of violence in Central America, lots of violence. Where's fentanyl so popular now? All the drugs are popular with people. Yeah, I mean, you have.
Why are they cutting everything with fentanyl? I thought fentanyl was an expensive drug. I don't get it.
Yeah, they do whatever. The drug dealers do whatever they can. Some have all the different cutting agents. Some guys use the cheapest stuff they can find. That's why it's crazy. People use the drugs. When you see what people put in cutting agent in the drugs from the street, it's insane that anybody would put that in their system.
It's like battery acid and all kinds of.
You name it, they put. It's just unbelievable. I'm surprised more people don't die from drugs on the street than the way overdose and stuff is happening now. But no, it's a bad situation. So. Going back to why so violent, I think the culture of street gangs, it's a big problem, right? That is something that needs to be addressed, because if the repetitive cycle doesn't stop, that means it's going to be one generation after another generation after another generation. I don't know, maybe you can speak about, or if you saw that thing in Connecticut, but I know if in LA and other places where it's bad, Florida had it too. If you don't separate the people from the gang culture, that's where they're gonna become. If their father was a gangster, right? The kid's gonna end up being a gangster in that culture, and you got to get them out of there, because
it seems like it's in music, it's in all the popular culture. Being in gang is like a cool thing nowadays. They're all screaming gang, gang, but people are getting arrested and going to prison, and they don't see that side of it. You know what I mean?
No.
They just see the rap videos and the internet, and everybody. It just seems like it's taken over everywhere. It's cool to be a gang member now. It's crazy.
Yeah, flashing signs and everything else. And at the end, it's going to end up only a few ways. Either going to get killed in the culture, right? The guy's going to kill each other, or they get incarcerated for long periods of time. So it's not worth it. Not worth it at all. Get involved in stuff like that.
Steve says, "Is it living condition? Is it living conditions or drugs?"
That's doing what?
Yeah, what do you mean, Steve?
That's driving the violence?
If you kill your customer, your demand will become less. No, because the other drug addicts, they want what killed the guy.
Yeah.
Because it's strong.
Yeah, no, it's a bad. What we need to do is people get off that stuff, right? Yeah. That's what we need. That's a solution. It's get off that stuff and work on that, because that has to be the end, where people saying it's not cool. And you're seeing stories, these kids get out younger and younger, they start using drugs. It's unbelievable. The stories you're hearing and seeing, they're starting in 6th, 5th, 7th grade, and they're using, when people went into high school, right? Our generation was high school, now it's middle school, now it's elementary, and they're doing all this stuff. They think it's cool to be partying and doing this stuff early, and they become addicts. And it's not a good thing for us, because it just thrives. And a lot of these organizations want this. I mean, recently in Honduras, the former president, look how corrupt it was. He's just been extradited to the United States for being a major drug trafficker. He was using his military to protect the drug loads coming from Venezuela and other places to smuggle them in the United States. That's the type of corruption we're dealing with, and it's
So
that
they
bad.
they took the old president.
Yeah, he just got Hernandez. Look him up. He just got extradited to the United States. You remember Manuel Noriega?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another guy, and another one who's been indicted is Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro. That guy was indicted in the Trump administration, and I wasn't happy that this guy's a narco-terrorist dictator, right? He took over after Hugo Chavez, who was a communist, who won the election. People chose a communist, just like they did in Colombia. Now they elected a communist, which is, I think, it's a big mistake. It's going to put the country in a bad path, just like in Venezuela. The problem with these guys, and just like with Xi Jinping, Fidel Castro, the guy in North Korea, they get greedy, and the corruption, they like the money for themselves, right? Because he used all the narco money for himself, and he enriched himself while he's not a communist anymore. Because, communists, they say they're supposed to be all equal and the same, right? No, they don't want that. They use the people as they want.
Yeah, it's a dictatorship.
He's a big dictator. So, he's been indicted. There's a reward for him for any information that leads. I think $15 million by the State Department. Well, we all know where he is. He's in the palace in Caracas, right? So do we get a cut of that money? But you know what Biden does instead? He ends up sending a delegation out there so that they can maybe negotiate with him. Venezuela used to be an OPEC nation, because remember how high the prices were? To see if Venezuela can start pumping oil. You don't want to give this guy a lifeline. This guy has stole the election. He's destroying his people. And look at all the Venezuelans that are in Florida now. They left. It's like Cuba. What happened with Cuba, with Castro? The same thing was happening here. Over 6 million have left.
Yeah, that migration in the 80s, right? Around the time that the Scarface movie. That's what
Cuba,
that was
been
based
coming
on.
since the late 50s, even before that. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's been coming and coming and coming for years. My family came in.
Do they still come now on boats?
Yeah. Some come in boats, some come in planes, some still come, because it's still a communist system over there, right? Yeah. Now you have a different. You still have Raul Castro out there, but he's sick and old. Fidel Castro died a few years ago. He was in his late 80s, and now you have this other guy, Diaz-Canales, who's he's a bureaucrat. He was a teacher. He went up the communist system. So same with Venezuela. Venezuela has this communist here, and he needs to be. So what does Biden do? He sends a delegation out there to negotiate with this guy so they can get oil back. So why would you give this guy a lifeline for what he is? So that's some of the things. And I also do politics too. That I said Joe Biden is one and done. He's a one-term president. So I've got there, and it's going to be a red tsunami. The Republicans are just going to clean house with Pelosi gone. Pelosi's going to be gone. Chuck Schumer's going to be gone. All these guys are going to be gone. And I see Biden, if he even runs.
I think they should wipe out the whole government and start over. They should. They should take them all out and just put new people in, appoint new people, have the people appoint the people.
Yeah, hopefully Biden will be. I mean, I think he's been a disastrous president. Look at the disaster in Afghanistan. What a disastrous exit.
Yeah, but he didn't start that mess. I think he was just trying to clean it.
But if you're going to leave, you can't have the Taliban do protection at the end in Kabul at the airport, and 13 military personnel were massacred, killed because he's let the Taliban do security at the airport, and they get killed because of these guys, because they're not going to do. They're the enemy. What kind of security things are going to do? They're going to let them get massacred, and they killed I think 100 Afghan citizens there. It was a horrible massacre. If you look at the video, that is horrible. You remember the picture?
I remember people were holding on to the plane,
giving up the babies, giving up their babies over the fence. I mean, it is just a horrible situation. But you have to plan things right, and I think he's been very, very poor president and poor leadership. He has health issues. Some people question his faculties if he's all there. And I mean, poor guy can't ride a bike, right? How many times he falls up and down off the airplane, which is, that happens. But it's just a failed policies from everything. Highest inflation in 40 years we have in this country.
Yeah, it's insane. I can't even afford to do anything anymore.
That's a death for him. That's a death wish for him right there. So I don't see him winning re-election. If he runs, he might even run again. So
If
you
he
like
makes it
politics,
that far.
if he makes it, he does have health issues. You're absolutely right. He doesn't look good. He doesn't act. I think there's serious health issues with him, and he's not being forthcoming. And his son, Hunter Biden, he might be indicted too. So
See what's going on with all that, man. He's got
yeah,
videos of him doing drugs and all
yes.
kinds of crazy
You've seen
shit.
that?
Yeah, insane.
No, he's going to be indicted soon. There's a sitting grand jury in Delaware for looking at evidence, not just for his son, but I hear also for his brother, also. Because how are they getting paid? And I'm not talking about politics, but I do everything. I start with politics. I do a little everything, but politics is my passion. That's what I studied in college, and I've been following my whole life.
Yeah.
How do they get these kind of jobs with no experience with in oil companies in Ukraine and China as lobbyists, consultants? And they have no experience in that because of the connections with the vice president, with Joe Biden at the time. So that's really, and there's a lot of things going on. They didn't register as agents. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can look into what they did. I encourage your audience to do so, but I see him being indicted soon enough. What everything you can do, take a look at. So I see Joe being one and done. That's the name of the book. If you like what I'm saying, you'll see my predictions. The end of the Democrats in the House and the Senate. They have already. Biden will be a one-term president, and we'll see. I hope the situation Trump. I don't think he can win, but
I
I
don't
do.
think they'll let him win again.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
I
think
do. I would see Ron DeSantis with somebody else as a strong ticket to really knock him out. And he was a very popular governor in Florida especially when I was living there. And he stood up to a lot of the stuff that was going on during COVID. He kept the business open. You know how the Northeast shut down?
Yeah.
Florida didn't shut down.
Yeah, well,
Florida,
up here we were shut down,
you
man.
guys were shut
You
down.
couldn't even go to the store. You couldn't do
No, it's
anything.
ridiculous. You have to. It's a business, and look at now. Now they realize. Look at what China did, or New Zealand, or other places that were shutting down. They ruined their economies, right? You have to
Yeah.
find a middle ground. You got to be smart about things, right?
And now you got all these people who couldn't pay their rent, and now they're trying to continue to live rent free. It's insane, like insane. And they're
Insane
like,
in the
well,
membrane, right?
why do I got to pay the rent? Like, it's COVID.
No, COVID's done. Oh, it's gonna be the monkeypox now. We got the
Yeah,
monkeypox coming up, and we're gonna have the other one, the other pox, and everything else. One excuse after another. No, and then they don't want to pay student loans back either. Hey, just get rid of our student loans. They want everything for free, but we can't sustain that, right? That
no.
doesn't work that way, and no nation can survive anything like that. So we have to be smart about it. And China shot themselves in the foot because they were shutting down too much, and they really went. Their economy really suffered. But a lot of the states that stayed open, Northeast suffered, but the red states, a lot of them stayed open, and look a difference it makes, right?
But a lot of like mom and pop businesses, they
Oh,
got
it's
closed
horrible.
down, and
Oh man, I feel bad for those people.
yeah,
That's why I say I hate to say, Bill, I would never live in a blue state. I don't like their policies. I don't like the way things are, and I don't like any of it. That's why I live in Florida. I live in Orlando, Virginia, which has become a red state now because we things have changed. People like what they're seeing here with the governor who's a Republican who's doing really well here. I see a lot of things, and they're very still pro firearms, pro gun, which is what you need. You need to protect yourself. So there's a lot of good things out there. I think your audience viewers, if you like everything I'm saying right here, obviously I'm an ATF. I was a retired ATF agent. I've become an author writer, but I'm doing other things too. I think you can find a gamut of interesting reads. And if something you don't know about something, hey, I don't want to know more about Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. I got a book on this guy. I want to know about China. I got a book on this too, because this is something I've been following. I had a background in political science, history. It's like, some people I love football too, but I really also love politics. And you can see I'm really enthralled with that too. So there's a lot to talk
yeah,
about.
I can see that, man. You're once you get locked on a subject, you're like, I'll just write a book about it and then
Yeah.
move to the next one.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're not super long. So if you're not a big reader, at least you get some information on it. Hey, an hour and a half read. That's not bad. It's something you can do.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna put your link in there right this second.
Cool. They can look
So
at it.
if you guys want to go check out his book, the link is in the description of this video.
Can you see my poster behind me?
Yep.
Yeah, ATF Undercover. Yeah, and a lot of books. And don't forget the freebie for this weekend on the
Yep.
Hell's Angels. The Hell's Angels.
I'm putting it in right now, so they'll be able to go to check it out. I just gotta put it in this little box. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time for me tonight, man.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Any other cool questions that maybe we missed? Anybody? Any other questions?
I want to know, is there any cases that really stand out to you or situations that you were in
Oh
that
yeah.
stand out to you that you're like, this was pretty memorable?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good cases we do, and I remember dealing with this one guy, and he was just give a little background. It's ATF does a lot of cases with really bad guys, right? Repeat violent offenders and stuff, and those are the ones you remember the most when you're able to put those guys away for a lengthy amount of time. And just give a little background to your audience. This guy back in like in the early '80s, right? He was involved in a chase with police in the city of Miami, right?
Hmm.
And he was driving the car. He had a passenger on it, and they were in a shootout with the police back and forth. The police would follow him. They hit the brakes, but I guess back then the car doors opened up on them, and they fell out of the car. So he positioned the car in a certain way so the passenger can open up on them. Thank goodness he didn't kill him, right? He missed them, and they were able to
Oh,
survive.
so the doors opened up and they hang it out,
They
they
I guess hit the brakes so fast they fell out of the vehicle. They
the cops did.
Yeah, they fell out of the vehicle, and according to the report, he was able to position him and try and shoot him when they were on the floor. He
Oh
didn't kill
man,
him, which is good, and they caught him there, arrested him later. That's attempted murder. Two
yeah.
counts of attempted murder right there for these guys. He ended up getting for that about should have got life, but he ended up getting 30, but he did a lot less than 30 in the state time, right? So that's 1980. You fast forward now to 2010, 2011. All right. I've been dealing with this guy already. This is up in Tampa, North Tampa, in a county called Pasco County. And
Yeah.
I've been buying doping guns from this guy's like Mexican American from the Zephyr Hills area, Dade City. So everybody knows that area. I've been buying doping guns, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, I got a lot of guns here, and this guy here, which I'm dealing with, he wants to talk to you." So I talked to him in Spanish. Say, "Hey, these guns are hot. We want to sell them to you because I know you've been buying guns for him for a while." And I said, "Well, yeah, what kind of guns do you have?" "Oh, we got handguns, 9s, 40s, all different kind of calibers, rifles and shotguns." So we negotiate a price, right? And he said, "Okay, we agreed this amount." And they said they're stolen. I said, "Okay, I want to move quickly. I'll buy them. Don't get rid of them because I want to make sure we can buy them." And I have an undercover apartment, right? That's fully wired up and in that area, in which I already bought doping guns from the other guy. So that's
Yeah.
perfect. I have them come over and they bring it in. So they show up in two different vehicles and they have a dresser. And I said, "What's with the dresser?" He said, "Oh, the guns are inside the dresser." So I'll back up for a little bit. So before that meeting, I had met with the detectives because they help us up from the county, right? And I said, "Hey, this
Hmm.
guy sounds like he's a Cuban guy, older guy. Do you have anybody they've had any issues or encounters with?" And he goes, "Well, we had this guy." They showed me a picture of him. I said, "Okay." And I saw his history. He goes, "Oh, attempted murder on Leo, attempted murder here. He's got a career criminal. It's a bad dude." So I got to really be on my game because it's just me in the apartment with these two, guys in there. And I got the apartment looking like a regular apartment, but it's
Yeah.
wired for video and sound and everything. So these guys show up. We have the meeting, and they have the dresser. And I said, "Man, they bring a dolly and everything." One guy comes in a truck, and one comes in a vehicle. He introduced himself as Chino. "Hey, I'm Chino." So, "Hey, well, we speak in Spanish." The other guy also speaks Spanish. So we go inside, and I said, "It's in here?" I said, "Yeah, we put it in here in case we stop by the police. We have the guns in the dresser." And we took the drawers out, and we just had the tabs on it. So we just the crowbar, took it off, and here comes the guns, and it's perfect. I have the video. These guys are career criminals, right? Well, this one guy is. The other one's he has a bad history too, but not career criminal. But I already bought doping guns from him, so he's handing me all the guns. You can see the picture of him. They're taking them out. I'm looking at them. I'm inspecting them out there. And I said, "Man," and they're telling me, "Well, so what do you guys do?" I said, "Well, they also work as a window company. So be careful with these vans." So they were parked in people's homes. If they think the house is empty, then they're going around like they're working on the windows,
Yeah.
go in and steal everything inside and load up in the van, and off they go.
Yeah.
So that's what they were doing. They had a window company. So I said, "Okay." So I had the guns. They take the dresser back out. They come back like everything's wired. We're talking. All the guns are spread out on the floor, and he starts talking. And he starts. I wonder if he's going to talk about what happened in Miami, about 25 years ago or so. Of course he does. And, like some people, they can't keep their mouth shut. They like to brag and boast and everything else. I said, "Listen, bro, this is nothing. I can get you a lot more weapons, get you AK-47s, I get you AR, whatever you need, I'm going to get from you." he said, I I grew up in Florida also. I like it here better. Tampa's really hot. This area here is a little cooler. And he said, yeah, they tried to shoot me. I was in a shootout with the police. I said, oh, okay, keep on talking. We're recording. They couldn't kill me. And all that. He was bragging and everything else. I said, okay, fine. So after he left, I had the evidence. About a month later, a few weeks later, we arrest these guys.
You guys didn't get more guns from them?
We got some more guns from the other guys. So the case gets right there. But that was one of the biggest hits right there, because the guns they stole from were from a prominent member from the community there in the county. In fact, he worked a lot with the sheriff's office. So that was satisfying that at least I was able to return the guns back to them and then go on the street somewhere. We got it pretty quickly, which I think was pretty good. He was arrested, convicted, and he was sentenced. And at the time, he was already in mid-50s to 30 years.
Mid
30 years.
That's
So
pretty much like a life sentence.
it's a life sentence for a guy, because he had to do first his state time. So he didn't start doing his federal time until after the state time. So he just started after 10 years doing state time. So it's pretty much he's done. So we'll never see a guy like that on the street again. So that was extremely satisfying as an agent working undercover, for sure. And I got a lot more cases like that. He did undercover for Hells Angels? No, I did not. I wrote a book about them. I'm also like I research and write historical books on, and also write novels too, and other things, travel books and stuff like that.
How many books you got all together?
43 and counting.
Wow, man.
And I just did the one I just told you, just came out.
Yeah, the barter one, right?
ATF versus the FBI, the rivalry within the Department of Justice. Pretty cool stories also. So this is my experience, things I've gone through. What organized crime would have done? Street gangs. I did street gangs. Latin King guys, gangster disciples, Bloods, all those street gangs. I did other cases sometimes because I would undercover, but also case agent. You do some other cases of organized crime, but as a case agent. But undercover wise, it was more dealing international trafficking, a lot of international trafficking cases, armed drug dealers, also drug organizations. So you look at drug organizations, I did street gangs, and a lot of violent offenders. A lot of violence. Those people gotta be careful, very careful, very dangerous people. Why did you do it? It was my job.
Why'd you do it? Why do you think he did it? For the money, man.
It's my job. It's my job. And so I became good at it, and I enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I really, because I was raised, going to Catholic schools, right? I wasn't raised anything like this. I learned it quickly, and I beat these career guys who grew up in the street in their own game, pretend to be something what they were, which I was nothing like them at all. And I got a lot of satisfaction of that.
You go into the streets pretending to be this criminal who's buying these guns.
You got to come with everything, story, everything in your head, because obviously I wasn't like that at all, right? I grew up going Catholic schools and doing different things. I was going to go to law school, right? I was at FIU studying international relations, going to go to law school, and I put in for customs, and that changed everything, my direction. But I'm kind of happy because I end up putting a lot of bad people away, and that gave me a lot of satisfaction. And I think you
kind of molded into the ATF undercover job, right?
You have to come up with a good cover story. You have to be good at it, because then you're wasting your time or you're going to get hurt, right?
Cadillac Jack says, "What was your scariest moment undercover?"
There's going to be quite a few. You got to keep your nerves about you. Scariest moment when you're dealing with armed home invaders and you're going down for a takedown, that could be intense, because these guys are jacked up. They're willing to rob, and they may want to kill you first, but there's a lot of variables go in there, which I'm going to talk about, where you got to take these guys down. Sometimes when people try and get you inside their location, let's say they want you to front their money, I'm not going to front. Don't front anything, because you're going to lose it. That's one thing you learn quickly. And it said, you got to see the product. You show me a product, you get paid for it. I'm not going to have, if you're in some trailers or you're in some area there, and your money will disappear. Or
did you ever sense that they were going to try to rob you?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, the one is, I had one that was in up near Zephyr Hills, again, in trailers, and dealing with different Hispanics. And the guy, I could see in the back that there were guys still coming in the back of the trailer. And the guy was saying, "Hey, man, why don't you give me the money? I'll go get the guns." I said, "No, I'm not doing that." I said, "All right." And I see a lot of people coming in there. I said, "How about you and I go in there?" And I said, "No, the deal was, I'm in the truck. You bring me the stuff, right? And I'm going to pay you for it. That's it. I'm not going in there. I don't want to meet anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm dealing with you. You go in there." I think I would take in a wad of cash or whatever in there. It would have been lights out. It would have been bad news for me. So
Yeah.
you got to keep your wits and be smart about it. It's not worth it. And if it doesn't happen, the deal, your life, and you see people sometimes get cut up with the obsession. I got to make the deal happen. It's not worth getting killed over a deal, right? There's always another day to fight again. So
Have you had, while you're in the job, while you're undercover, have you had other people who you're working with, like not like as a partner or whatever, but in the same, so you're in the office, you got all your coworkers, they're doing cases. Have you had any situations where like maybe they got robbed, or like where you hear about
yeah, sure.
another undercover agent who's working with the same?
Yeah, you do training and people hear about things like that where bad decisions were made, people get shot, people get hurt. Yeah, you hear about a case like that. Sometimes you got to be careful, how you deal with things. You hear cases where people get put down on their knees. Say hotel room deals can be very tricky, right?
Yeah.
Guys come in and all of a sudden they start blasting or start putting guns out, and they put people on their knees and stuff, right? And they say, hey, give me this and that and whatever. So you gotta be on your game and careful. I was fortunate enough that never happened to me, but that's just the way, because I portray myself in a sense where obviously I don't look like this and I don't sound like this, and I'm working to get these guns down south. So I'm working for these people. So I want to make you understand that I'm working for them. So you mess with me, you know what's going to rain on you.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you got a backing.
You got to understand that I'm not. You don't want to play with me. You don't want to fuck with me. So.
Lucy wants to know, Garcia family ring a bell in Florida?
That's a lot of Garcias.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Yes, a lot of Garcias for sure.
That sounds like worth checking out. Sounds like good books.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
What's the scariest moment undercover?
I think I talked about that. One. Yeah.
Three sons and father. Garcia, 3 sons and father?
No. Does he not see me?
Bless you too, Lucy.
Fair call.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you taking the time for me, and I'll definitely have you on again, and we'll talk about some more of the cases that you've been involved in. And thank you, man.
And more books coming out.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have about 8 more by the time I have you back.
And I got some other exciting news down the road that hopefully I can share with your audience and viewers. Working on, I can't say much about it, but possible screenplay I'm working on. So.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah,
is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we go?
Well, my family, of course, and Bill Crooks, right, making this happen.
Yeah, man, Bill. Shout out to Bill Crooks.
Bill Crooks, man, that's awesome. And we'll keep on working and keep on doing things, and it's a good deal, man. I like the live shows, pretty cool. I like the audience interaction.
Yeah, man, it is cool. So I just want to give a shout out to Partners in Crime podcast, Crime and Entertainment, Anthony Ramundi, Steve Martirano from Florida, man. Shout out to you, bro. Stay strong. Chicky, shout out to Chicky and Damien, Brian Hoyle, and all the people who've been rocking with me, man. I appreciate you. It's already been real over here, but it's about to get real for you. So make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Till next time, man. Thanks again, man.